Chapter 251 Destruction. Seeing Mo Kaiwan's appearance, Han Li knew that now was not the time to ask for the whole story, so he no longer pursued it. Just like that, Mo Kaiwan brought him to a small store on a side road, then stopped. This place? Han Li was slightly amazed, and he glanced at Mo Kaiwan inquisitively. Yes, this is the place. My mother and I do some small business here. We only wanted to earn some spirit stones to buy some medicinal pills to suppress her illness, Mo Kaiwan said, somewhat embarrassed as her face reddened. Then, she took the lead and walked in. Seeing this, Han Li smiled. He didn't say anything and simply followed her inside. Mother, look who I've brought here. Han Li had just stepped into the store when he heard Mo Kaiwan speak as if she were presenting a treasure. Next, another female voice that Han Li was familiar with also spoke, but it was somewhat older. Who else could come? Ever since your eldest uncle Ju died, only the neighbor, and Xiang Lian, has come to see us. There was no doubting that this voice was Lady Yan's voice, although it was much more hoarse than before. No, Senior Marshal Brother has come. I ran into Senior Marshal Brother in the castle. Mo Kaiwan excitedly shouted. Senior Marshal Brother? Didn't your few Senior Marshal Brothers die a long time ago? You silly child, your mind is probably becoming muddled, Lady Yan brought up, clearly somewhat worried. At this time, Han Li was already clear on the circumstances in the store. A 60 or 70 foot small room, numerous wooden counters with neatly placed low-grade talismans placed on them, and a few unprofitable materials. There was also a wooden door leading to the inner rooms, and behind the wooden counter was a woman lying on a bamboo armchair, gazing at Mo Kaiwan in front of her with a worry-stricken face. This was none other than Lady Yan, whom he had not seen for nearly 10 years. However, her appearance had aged significantly, and from her face it was clear that she was ill. One could only see a shadow of the formerly beautiful woman between her eyebrows. Han Li's entrance naturally attracted the attention of Lady Yan. When she saw clearly that it was Han Li, she first was shocked and couldn't help but want to stand up, but this clearly was not something that she, with her severe sickness, could do. She only straightened half of her body before she once again fell back down. The nearby Mo Kaiwan hurriedly reached out and held her up. You are Han Li? Lady Yan strenuously panted a few times. Like Mo Kaiwan, her shock was not small, but in addition to her shock, a trace of expectation and happiness appeared on her face. Han Li naturally knew what the other person was thinking in her heart, but after hesitating for a moment, he still took a few steps over and greeted her respectfully. Fourth Marshal Mother, greetings. You are still willing to recognize me as your teacher's wife? You don't hold a grudge about what happened back then? Happiness flashed across Lady Yan's face upon hearing Han Li call her Fourth Marshal Mother, but she also asked this out of suspicion, not daring to believe it. What happened back then, when we were determining who was in the wrong, me or Master Mo? We will not talk about it for now. However, the master-disciple relationship between me and Master Mo was genuine, thus, I still should call you Marshal Mother, Han Li replied, his expression calm. As for the issue of the poison he forced into me, it's even more irrelevant. Aren't I standing here in perfect condition? Han Li added carelessly. Now, based on his identity as a Foundation establishment cultivator, he naturally did not need to hold a grudge against these mortals. The furious disputes he had with Lady Yan and his master's other wives, he naturally did not place them in his eyes. Yes, based on your intellect your life should be very good in the cultivating world. Not like me and your other martial mothers, who have all become stray dogs. Sigh. Lady Yan had just sighed with regret when her face suddenly became blood-red, and she was hit by a bout of coughing. Mother, you're okay, right? Senior Marshal Brother. Mo Kaiwan began to panic, and she hurriedly began to gently stroke Lady Yan's chest. Her gaze towards Han Li was filled with pleading. Let me take a look. Han Li could not resist Mo Kaiwan's grief-filled gaze. He gently sighed, then reached his hand out and grasped the pulse on Lady Yan's wrist. After a brief moment, his expression naturally relaxed, and then he said, "It's not serious, it's just that her old wound has begun to act up again. Her illness is a result of this wound compounded with the lack of rest and years of overly taxing her mind and body." "Is it easy to cure?" Mo Kaiwan asked anxiously. "Don't worry, if I had to deal with these old wounds 10 years ago, it truly would have been somewhat difficult. But now, it's a trivial matter," Han Li said comfortingly. Then, he took out a box of needles from his storage pouch and performed an acupuncture technique on Lady Yan, causing her to immediately stop coughing. "In the future, take 1 pill every day. After 10 or so days, you should be completely cured," Han Li said self-confidently as he pulled out a small bottle and handed it to Lady Yan. Lady Yan's whole body did not feel uncomfortable at all. The disease that had plagued her for years actually and truly had gone without returning. At this time, she glowed as if she had been revitalized and gotten a few years younger. Now that she received the bottle, she felt her mood surge even more. What was she to say? Han Li. Lady Yan had only just begun to express her gratitude, when Han Li spoke and interrupted her. "Now, can you tell me exactly what happened to the Mo estate, as well as how you guys arrived at Yanling Castle?" Han Li still wanted to understand exactly how this had occurred. A sorrowful expression appeared on Lady Yan's face upon hearing this, and she slowly began to recount what happened that year. It turned out that when Han Li had taken care of Ouyang Fadian of the Hegemon's villa, it truly had allowed the fearsome Flood Dragon Association, which had been prepared for it, to take a large advantage and swallow up the greater half of the land and benefits. However, the other overlord in the state of Lan, the Rainbow Sect, responded rather quickly as well, swallowing the remaining smaller half. In this way, the state of Lan now consisted of 2 powers living side by side. But since the equilibrium between the 3 powers had been broken, naturally the same mountain could not house 2 tigers. In the end, when the Mo estate-led fearsome Flood Dragon Association and the Rainbow Sect exchanged blows, they discovered that they had made a grave mistake. They should not have let Ouyang Fadian die like that. This Rainbow Sect's strength had vastly exceeded the outward strength that they displayed. In just one battle, the fearsome Flood Dragon Association suffered a huge defeat. After that, the fearsome Flood Dragon Association was pulled up from its roots, and the Mo estate also met with attacks from numerous experts. The helpless women could only break through the siege and run for their lives. In the end, second wife Lady Li and fifth wife Lady Wang lost their lives when breaking through, and when the others escaped from the siege, they immediately split up and went into hiding. As a result of their actions, Lady Yan and Mo Kaiwan were heavily pursued. Just when it seemed the two were about to lose their lives, a middle-aged man who called himself Yanju saved Lady and, upon obtaining their consent, brought them into Yanling Castle, becoming mortals of the Yan clan fortress. Yan Shu was only a Qi condensation, low-status disciple in Yanling Castle, and his ability was limited, but he still treated both Lady Yan and her daughter very well. After a year, Lady Yan decided to bluntly marry this person to repay him for saving them. But because Mo Kaiwan's beauty was so moving, out of fear of it attracting trouble, Lady Yan decided to publicly proclaim that Mo Kaiwan was a widow who had been married before. After cursing her husband to die, she entered within the castle. In this way, when Mo Kaiwan had someone in her heart and wanted to genuinely marry someone, she could give up her surname to whomever she chose. Lady Yan and her daughter actually lived 2 peaceful years inside the castle. Unfortunately, Yanju was involved in an accident while carrying out a mission for the clan and was buried in a foreign land. Suddenly, Lady Yan and her daughter had no one to rely on, nor could they leave the castle. They could only continue to depend solely on Yanling Castle and use their pension of spirit stones to start up a small shop, doing whatever bleak business they could. As long as they continued like this, although the store's income was not great, it was enough to allow Lady Yan to see a doctor and buy medicine and keep the illness repressed. However, the store that always sent their store low-grade talismans suddenly became inaccessible to them, causing Lady Yan's small store to be on the verge of collapse. What kind of person was Lady Yan? She immediately saw through the core issue of the situation. After analyzing the situation, she discovered the person who was messing with their shop behind the scenes. As it turned out, some cultivator who lived nearby had taken a liking to Mo Kaiwan after seeing the mother and daughter walk past his door often. He actually did not care about the rumors of Mo Kaiwan having cursed her husband and directly proposed a request to marry Mo Kaiwan. Lady Yan naturally would not agree, and so in the end, this cultivator left in a rage. As such, the person messing with things behind the scenes naturally was ready to emerge. When Han Li ran into Mo Kaiwan on the street today, it just so happened to be when Mo Kaiwan was looking for another supplier and had a large argument. Lady Yan thoroughly and slowly spoke, while Mo Kaiwan occasionally added a few sentences. Han Li roughly understood the whole story at this point. However, when hearing that Mo Kaiwan was being forced to marry someone, he couldn't help but gently laugh a few times. Who would expect that there were actually people who were willing to forcefully take the little demoness? However, this little demoness had truly grown into a big demoness in the years that he had not seen her, with a figure that could kill many people. Han Li, after so many years of cultivation, your cultivation should have advanced beyond the 9th layer, right? Lady Yan glanced over Han Li once again before politely asking. Having stayed in Yanling Castle over these years, although she had no way of cultivating, she knew quite a bit of common knowledge regarding the cultivation world. It's decent. Martial Mother no doubt wants me to deal with this cultivator's pestering. This person must be trouble, no? Han Li gently laughed before straightforwardly speaking. Hearing this, Lady Yan was somewhat embarrassed and relieved. From Han Li's tone, it seemed that he was willing to help.